Greetings, friends! Aaron Walther here, back with another book review episode of Aaron's Indie View. I'm trying something a little different here with the video format today. I hope it works out well, and if it does, I would like to do more book reviews in this format. Today, I am talking about Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics by Tom Scioli. Jack Kirby is a man who needs no introduction, but for those that may not know, he is officially recognized as co-creator of practically the entire Marvel Universe, and unofficially recognized by many of his fans as the sole creator of practically the entire Marvel Universe. But we can touch on that more when we get into the book. Tom Scioli is a comic book artist whose breakout work with writer Joe Casey on their Image comic series Godland is actually a personal favorite of mine. Godland itself is one big homage to Jack Kirby's cosmic superhero books like New Gods and the Eternals, so Scioli seems very much like the right man to do a Jack Kirby biography. Up front, I'll tell you that I absolutely loved this book. Like many people who have been greatly inspired by Jack Kirby and his work, I'm not unfamiliar with the details of his life. The man is a legend and one of the biggest foundations of, if not only superhero comics, but the entire comic book industry as it is today. It is definitely not hard to find stories about Jack Kirby on the internet. What this book does very well is compile them all into a linear narrative. The entire story of Kirby's life, from beginning to end, and then some. The first thing that struck me when I cracked open the book is that it is told in first person. The book is thoroughly sourced, mostly from published interviews that Jack Kirby gave throughout his life, which lends itself to that narrative style. Although the book is not endorsed or authorized by the Kirby estate, it very much feels like an autobiography since so much of it is Jack in his own words. I think this is also a clever creative choice to get around certain contentious aspects of Kirby's life, notably his falling out with Stan Lee over not being properly credited and paid for his work at Marvel Comics. There seems to be an endless and tired debate about who did more work in creating the classic Marvel characters, and regardless of where you land in the debate of who did what, etc., this book presents the events through Kirby's perspective as he experienced and remembered them. There are a few moments in the stories where Scioli switched the narration to a different character's perspective. He does so a few times and presents the point of view of Kirby's wife, Roz, but also one notable scene is presented from Stan Lee's perspective. It is one of the more dramatic events of both Kirby and Lee's lives when Marvel was on the brink of complete cancellation in the late 50s. According to Kirby, he single-handedly saved the company, which I believe he did, but his account is a little grandiose and condescending towards Stan Lee. Scioli provides 4 pages to add Lee's response to the stories Kirby tells of a specific incident and gives a brief history of Lee's own career in comics up to that point. It does a good job of reminding the reader that history can be muddy and often derives from hearsay. One of the most striking things about the book is Scioli's portrayal of Kirby in the art. Throughout the book, Kirby is presented as he undoubtedly saw himself, young, friendly, wide, baby blue eyes, and eager to constantly work and create. Being that Scioli's own art is often inspired by and even mimics Kirby's style, I initially expected the book to look a little bit more like Kirby's art, like Kirby had actually drawn it, which would kind of make sense given that the whole book is done in an autobiographical narrative style. But instead, Scioli employs a mix of cartooning and realism. As I said, Kirby is presented as a perpetually young darling with an oversized head, whereas the rest of the book employs a more realistic style. It helps to make Kirby stand out in the story as the main character, but it also helps make Scioli's own art stand out and differentiate itself from the Kirby art that he reproduces in the book. Seeing Scioli reproduce several classic pieces of Kirby art, characters, covers, etc., is one of the more charming parts of the book, and as I said, it just stands out all the more in contrast to Scioli's different realistic caricatures. Overall, I think this book is a really great read and definitely something you should look at if you are even remotely interested in the history of comics as both an art form and an industry. Definitely recommend. Ask for it at your local comic shop. Hey everybody, Aaron Walther here, just reminding you that if you like this podcast, please subscribe to the channel. Also, head over to secondthoughtcomics.com to stay up to date on the various comics that I write. For a limited time, I'm giving away a free PDF of my latest graphic novel, The Amoral Stingray. All you have to do is sign up to the Second Thought Comics newsletter. Link is in the description. Thanks for reading.